being broke is on brand and frugality has been made fun with the rise of underconsumption core. But is this trend leading to a more financially responsible and sustainable way of living? Or is it just performative poverty? So the actual trend of underconsumption core apparently started last summer on TikTok and really began by a viral video by Mary Lou Feldman. She showcased some of her old items and basically highlighted the idea of just simply using up our old items instead of buying new things constantly. This then led to the snowballing of this trend. This isn't something though that is actually new, because we've really been seeing these types of trends for a long time. For example, the anti-haul movement, a low buy or no buy shopping year. There was normcore apparently in the 2010s, which kind of put a prominence on plain clothing. It is essentially, in a lot of ways, minimalism. I don't know about you, but my For You page on practically every social media I have has been completely full of underconsumption core. And it's really interesting because I think that this has gained so much traction because it is a core, but it's also not really like the cores that we usually see. Because the cores that we usually see, things like tomato go core or cowboy core, ballet core, mob wife core, all these different cores generally are pretty consumeristic, they're niche, and they require you to go out and buy items to fit this aesthetic. The difference, however, with this particular core being underconsumption core is that you don't actually need to buy anything. That's the actual point of it. It's anti-buying. So the reason why I think this is trending so much is because it's a bit of like an enigma in the world of cores and aesthetics, in the way that it is one, but it isn't at the same time. One of the reasons why this has become so popular is because we are in a cost of living crisis. And I know I talk about this quite a lot, but it is true. And it is one of the things that has influenced us so much in our lifestyles. As we looked at last week in my video on the stay-at-home generation, more and more young people are doing activities that align with a frugal lifestyle. I think it's quite obvious that more and more of these trends would arise, such as underconsumption core, because this is really relatable to the majority of people. This video for a lot of people is actually quite comforting because it is a normal way of living. It's not what you usually see on social media and something that we are so used to, which is people doing well, which is fair enough, but it is a lot of flashy lifestyles, fancy cars, big houses, wardrobes and wardrobes of clothes, which isn't the normal thing for a lot of people. And because of this, we then start to, even subconsciously, compare ourselves with others, and therefore when we see a trend like underconsumption core arise, it feels quite nice in a way because it is refreshing. It's something that's a bit different to what we usually see on social media, and it gives us comfort in our lifestyles, I suppose, that we are just kind of all the same. This trend is also helping with sustainability, because obviously if you're re-wearing things and using things until they're old, until they're completely used up, then that is creating less waste and therefore it's better for the planet. I think societally we are becoming more conscious of environmentalism, of the way that we are having an impact on the world, and therefore again this is another reason why this trend could be so popular for a lot of people. Seeing lots of people on social media where you don't usually, like I said before, re-wearing things until they're old, until there's holes in them, until, you know, they just simply can't use them anymore, is refreshing, because we are used to seeing celebrities apparently re-wear stuff, but in reality they've just kind of worn it twice at an award ceremony 1 year apart, and then suddenly it's really environmentally conscious. But this, I think, highlights a lot more towards a sustainable lifestyle. Let's have a look at what trend specialists Shana Welpeter and Agus Panzoni say. Underconsumption core is driven by several factors, including environmental awareness, she says, the spotlight that has been put on fast fashion and its damaging impacts, as well as the global increase in desire to buy second-hand. To quote a Brat commandment directly from the Messiah Charlie XCX, you should wear an item to death. According to Welpeter, de-influencing, defashioning and other decor buzzwords have been hinting at this shift in consumer mindset for a while now. consumers are celebrating minimalism as a form of activism, she says. But isn't this just performative poverty? There is something certainly to be questioned about why this is trending so heavily, because this is what a lot of people have to contend with daily, and they don't have a choice. You could argue that this is actually really quite privileged to lean into this shareable and viral content and go into this kind of core aesthetic purely for that, because this isn't really like any other trend or core aesthetic, because this is actually what a lot of people have to deal with, and it's a daily challenge. It's actually a way of life, and it's not something that you can just swap and change like many of the other cores that are out there. Another thing to look at as well is that this is actually just a really good, normal and regular lifestyle for a lot of people. A lot of these videos that are made are just people using up their products. It's just people re-wearing their clothes. It's not anything kind of super major in terms of underconsumption. Maybe some of these videos that you can find on TikTok. And therefore, it could be seen as actually quite demeaning to label this way of just a very normal way of living as being under consumption core, when in reality it's just quite normal. It's just using up products that you've bought, it's just re-wearing clothes that you've bought. Like, it's just kind of, in a way, I think you could possibly see it as just being common sense type of things. And you could have worked really hard to get to this place where actually what you do does align technically with this under consumption core, but it could feel quite demeaning to see people online doing this in a way as a challenge when actually it's your good and regular way of living. There's also a question to be had about whether this is actually helpful in the way of making a stand and activism, because this could be seen as putting too much on the individual and their action over systemic change. In this way, it's pushing the individual into one of two boxes, being either under consumption or overconsumption, which actually confines you and your lifestyle. Though I do think that this is another topic in itself on social media, of these trends, cores and aesthetics, kind of putting people into boxes, putting labels on them when it's not necessarily needed or wanted. Overall, it seems that a step away from mass consumption is a step in the positive direction, and this could all really just depend on your perspective. There are many different ways to look at it, and you could see it as glamorizing poverty and putting too much onus on individual action, or you could see it as a celebration of normal lifestyles, which is in a way a breath of fresh air away from what we usually see on social media, which is a lot of lifestyles full of mass consumption. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it has been interesting for you. Please do not hesitate to leave any comments and questions down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!